This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. I want to welcome everyone into 2019. I hope to continue on this podcast journey, health willing, sanity willing, that I don't go crazy or something like that. I don't think that will happen, though. I enjoy this too much. I enjoy the process of communication, passing along insights, doing interviews. It's quite fun. You should all try it. Now, you might say to yourself, I have no experience in that. Well, guess what? I didn't have any fucking experience either. You just start. You just do it. Now, before I get into where I want to roll today, I have some distinct market views, so to speak. Not market views like some of you might think, but market process views. Always a little bit different here on the Trend Following podcast. But before I get into that, I want to offer a little PSA, something that I may or may not have said on this podcast before. But I sent some Christmas money because I was not in the same area to my niece and two nephews, all teenagers. And then I dropped the three of them a group text. And I said, hey, don't use the money to buy drugs or tequila. One of my nephews said, well, that's nice advice. Thank you. And then I followed up with, I said, look, maybe you wake up the next day, and this is if you're drinking, if you're out getting drunk and all that kind of stuff. I said, look, maybe you wake up the next day and there's a baby, or your underwear is in a tree, or you are in jail naked. Avoid booze. End quote. Michael Covel. You can actually quote me on that. Maybe you wake up the next day and there's a baby, or your underwear is in a tree, or you are in jail naked. Avoid booze. End quote. Now, none of those things happened to me, but I can safely say I did see those things happen to personal friends when I was a young guy. And I have to tell you, looking back in hindsight, I don't know what the benefit, point, or damn it, I just don't see it. Alcohol, drugs, I just don't get it. It does nothing. You've got limited time on this planet, at least until Silicon Valley figures out life extension. And if you've got limited time and you want to achieve, and I think everybody really wants to achieve before they get the life sucked out of them, but if you want to achieve, alcohol, drugs, I mean, my God, it's just not helping. All it's doing is delaying. And if you're delaying with limited time, which is what you've got is limited time, then what's the point? Now, that's me talking several decades after high school. But yeah, I look back and I say, what was the point? There was no point. Not good influences. Can't blame parents. I mean, you can blame parents to some degree. We all can. But at some point in time, we're responsible. And I would say to parents, look, you're not influencing your kids in any way, shape, or form. Their peers are. So if your kid smokes something or your kid drinks something and you try to stop them, that's not the point. It's their peers. You need to get the wrong peers out of your kid's life. That's about the only thing you can do. And then at some stage of the game, it's your kid's responsibility too. If your kid wants to be a loser, your kid will be a loser. That's life in the big city. Sorry to be so blunt as we approach 2019, but I really don't have patience for all the bullshit that goes on. You know, I like to give it straight. What's my view? Here it is. There it is. Out the window, there it goes. Take it or leave it. But you know what? Most of the time, it's true. And that truth causes some people to feel just a little bit uncomfortable. They just don't like it. That opening thought expands into a quote that I saw just the other day. Austin Allred, I have no idea who he is, but he offered this, quote, Americans are so bored and so far removed from any struggle of mortal urgency that their feigned outrage over petty offenses has become an embarrassing theater of the absurd, with social media encouraging ever more ridiculous displays, end quote. Now, of course, we can easily take that to the political realm. You know, oh my gosh, some petty something or another, and everybody's just all up in arms about some nonsense of the day, and it never ends. I don't yet know how people have not got to Excedrin headache number 56, because all of this stuff just doesn't stop. But think about it from a market perspective, because this is where I want to go today. Americans are so bored and so far removed from any struggle of mortal urgency that their feigned outrage over petty offenses. Think about the nonstop chatter on Twitter. I've said this before. Very bright people, from billionaires to regular millionaires to average Joes to media types to many of my friends, wake up each day with the sense, I have something to say. I will tell you how it all works. Here's how it unfolds. Now, if everyone is doing this, and we are expected to listen to everyone, it's information overload. It can't work. We will go crazy. And when you start to get to information overload, which is where I think a lot of people are getting, you should be walking into the trend following door. Now, that's no advertisement or PSA, but trend following is a fantastic tonic for information overload. I've got a couple examples I want to run through just to illustrate. You never know where you can see the trend following wisdom in place, and I often get feedback from people. I get emails. And a guy wrote me the other day. He happened to have purchased some of my training and was asking some questions before he had even received the training. He immediately wrote me back and he said, here's what's in my portfolio. Here's where the market is right now. What do I do? I said, whoa, patience. You want to learn how to be a trend following trader, but you don't even have it in front of you. You've got some other strategy. Who the hell knows what that is? And you want me to comment on it. Why don't you take a step back, wait, see what I can show you, then we can have a dialogue about that. But I don't want to talk about your current strategy. I don't want to talk about what you're currently doing. I have no idea. And I sure as hell don't want to advise on it. He came back to me after a few emails and he said that I was acting like a politician. I was giving politician answers. And he asked someone else for an opinion and they gave him an answer. Now think about how ridiculous that is. Politician answers. I was telling this fine gentleman, you need a process. You need to wait. You need to learn what that process is. He was saying, essentially, he didn't curse, but I will curse for him. He was essentially saying, no, fuck you, Mike. Here's my portfolio now. Here's my positions. Tell me what to do. And if you don't tell me what to do, you must be hiding something from me. Because if you're so smart, Mike, you should be able to analyze my portfolio immediately and tell me what to do from a trend following perspective with my portfolio right now. No, that's not what I'm going to tell you. And if you want that from me, you've already failed. You will fail. You will absolutely abject failure. You will not make it because he is so damn impatient to even stop for a moment to find out what a trend following process might look like. All he's worried about is his own little world in his right now, moment of now. And that's it. He's not alone. So many people approach the world that way. Another guy wrote me recently. He said, hey, I'm employing XYZ trend following method, and I did not take my signals on XYZ day. Now what do I do? I wrote him back. I said, well, why are you not following your rules? He said, well, I have to work that day. You're already starting to laugh, right? I mean, if you're going to do a system, you do a system. You follow the damn rules or there is no system. Apparently this guy, completely oblivious to the basic foundational concept. So I went back to him. I said, well, are you going to keep changing the rules? No, just this one time. Why did you change the rules again this one time? I had to work. Why do you think Me, Mike, why do you think that I can help you once you change the rules to something new that I don't even understand? It took like 5 emails to get him around to the idea of like, oh, I'm changing the system, and now I'm asking this guy, Mike, to tell me what to do with my new rules. The whole thing's just kind of nutty. But take a step back now from trend following. Here I am explaining some trend following ideas. This is modern life. Back to my comments about Twitter, back to all the gurus and talking heads across Twitter that have something important to say 30 times a day that we must listen to, because if we don't listen to them, something will go bad in our life. I mean, the biggest bunch of bullshit you've ever heard. But people are not seeing clearly, whether it's at the trading level, the investing level, or the life level. And I would say this is accelerating in a negative direction. People seem to be far less aware, far less self-aware, not very practical, not very robust, almost a little frightened, like children. This is what I observe. Now, come on, I'm not trying to tell you I'm all that or I'm perfect. Not the point, not what I'm trying to do. But I've got plenty of scars on my back, and I've seen things. I've seen dead people. Well, actually, just a few, not a lot. But when you've seen things, you're more grounded. You have a touch of wisdom. But now I'm seeing people that are just in this shiny, happy place. And they don't know how to navigate. They don't know how to turn. They don't know which lever to pull. And before you think that I'm just sitting here right now being a complete jackass and just ripping people for no reason, that's not the point. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm using these examples to illustrate what we're all up against. And if you can hear yourself in some of these examples, you can change your behavior. You don't have to be that person. Let me give another great example, one that goes back historically, at least. I think this was referred to me by Charles Faulkner, who has appeared on this podcast many times, one of my most popular guests. If you've not listened to Charles Faulkner on this podcast, you are missing something. He is one of those great minds when it comes to the psych space. But Charles shared with me years back that he attended an Ed Seykota conference or symposium. Ed was presenting. If you don't know about Ed, he is featured in Jack Schwager's Market Wizards book. He has also appeared on this podcast several times. You should check his episodes out as well. But at that conference, at that symposium, there was a big audience to hear Seykota speak. And the people in the audience were raising their hands, doing exactly what the people that send me emails today do. I'm not special. This is not anything wonderful about Mike. This is about, this goes on forever. This kind of mindset of not really looking at the world honestly. What is reality? Look at the world for what it is. Back to the event, one of the audience members asked Ed Seykota, about gold. He wanted to know about gold. He gave Seykota the open-ended question, tell me about gold. I think Ed supposedly held up his hands and made some motions that gold was shiny, yellow, smooth perhaps. Charles told me that when he was leaving the event, some people were making fun and saying what a waste of time it was because one of the great market wizards would not tell them something about gold, that he was sounding crazy talking about it being yellow and shiny. They completely missed the point. So you see where some of my sarcasm comes from. You see where some of my perspective comes from. It comes from people like Ed. Because instead of having big fights with folks, just point out the nonsense of it all. And people either get it or they don't get it. And if you think about the population as a whole, whatever that population might be, people are at various levels and various stages at any given time. This is what makes a market, right? A small number will be enlightened. A large number will have no clue. A large number will have no clue and be willing to bet their money all day long. So if you actually have a clue, if you have a plan, if you have a process, if you have a system, well, damn straight, you're already on the path to success. But I really do love that Sakota story. Some people might think, well, that's cocky, that's arrogant on Ed's part. I don't think so at all. I think it's brilliant. He does it better than I could ever do it, to give those kinds of stories, to think of those connections, to basically hold the mirror up to people and their questions. So many people want to ask questions, but they don't think about the questions. They're lazy. Like the guy that writes me before he even knows what a trend following method is, and he wants my trend following perspective on his current portfolio. He already has no idea how different the fire hose of trend following information is going to be that I'm going to give him. Now, taking all these examples today, I want to share with you some comments from a recent Barron's article titled Winton Capital's Idiosyncratic Founder on Artificial Intelligence and Statistical Fallacies, dated December 26th, 2018. An article in Barron's about David Harding, the founder of Winton Capital. I must say from the top, I'm a fan of David's, so I probably am a little biased. He has been very kind to me over the years with information. And the cool information that comes from David is just straightforward. No nonsense. Just matter of fact. I've always appreciated that. I want to quote a couple excerpts from the article. First, quoting from Barron's, "For 35 years, we have made money from trading momentum in markets. Quite extraordinary," Harding says. By momentum trading, he's referring to the practice that Winton and other trend followers pursue of buying and selling stocks based on the strength of recent price trends. Along the way, the 57-year-old Harding has been catapulted into an exclusive club with $1 billion to his name. He is among the 5 richest hedge fund managers in Britain, according to the Sunday Times of London. Despite his success, he still appears like a man habitually having to defend an investment strategy. Quote, "The great and the good, are always on about fundamentals," Harding tells Barron's. "In some way, we are slightly, morally suspicious for looking at numbers." Winton's approach, he adds, always seems to end up being positioned as, "Wow, that's really wacky," end quote. He is so spot on with that. This is why I redid my trend following book for my 2017 massive edition, was to take all of that angst that gets thrown at trend following and give the counter, to lay it out there in all of its detail. Now, do I really think the brightest investors across this planet position trend following as wacky? No, not by any stretch. Do I think reporters at Barron's, the Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily, CNN, or whatever modern financial mouthpiece that's putting out regular mainstream nonsense, do I think they think it's wacky? Of course. Those groups are programmed to do one thing, which is to tell you a story every day. They need to tell you a fundamental story every day. And there's a reason for this. If the news was backed by a trend following perspective, what would the story be? Well, we would not really care. We just follow the price action. You see, the stories are really needed for more than anything. The fundamental stories, advertising dollars. They need you to pay attention. If you pay attention, they make money. So when a Barron's reporter is emphasizing that David Harding thinks his strategy is positioned as wacky, well, they have to position it as wacky. If they don't position it as wacky, then what are they? Well, they're absolute bullshit. Of course, we know that. Well, we don't all know that, but Some of us know that. So you gotta position Harding as wacky. I mean, we sure as hell don't want to do a real investigation of how a guy started a hedge fund in the late 90s with $1 million and has run it to 30 billion trading trend following methods. We really don't want to break that down, do we? I mean, who in their right mind wants to know how that happened? I mean, of course, we all know he must have just been lucky. He was trading some wacky method with computers and, the dice roll went his way. Of course, I'm being slightly sarcastic, but it is amazing the lack of curiosity that people have. Even for a Barron's reporter like this, when you have David Harding in front of you, give him some meat. Take him down a path where he can educate you. Don't just keep going with the silly narrative. But of course, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I have to. The silly narrative is needed because we need advertising dollars. We need people to buy our words that we give every week, every day, every minute. I want to quote a little bit more from the article, which I think is nice coming from David Harding. People like ourselves and our fellow travelers, fellow trend following travelers, don't look at individual situations. We look at patterns across time and across markets. Winton has a room devoted solely to charts that display the long-term price movement of 80 different assets from sugar to stocks. Now that gets back to my earlier example, the personal situation. Tell me about right now. Well, you see, David Harding doesn't wake up each day with a knowledge of when something will happen. He wakes up each day knowing I have these positions or I don't have these positions. And if I have these positions, I will do this if the markets do that. He's reacting to market movement. He is not predicting market movement. He does not know what will happen next. But he is positioned to take advantage of whatever happens next. It's such a critical distinction, and it is absolutely not taught in colleges. It's not taught in the business world. Even if you're at one of the largest investment banks, if you're at Goldman Sachs, you could probably go your whole career at Goldman Sachs and not hear about the details of what David Harding is doing. Because not only do people need to sell you fundamental advertising, we should just cut right to it, right? Just call it fundamental advertising. Instead of fundamental investing, just fundamental advertising. Not only does the media need to sell you fundamentals, the big brokers need to sell you fundamentals for the same damn reason. They've got to justify their salaries. They've got to justify that they are smart, that they know what is up, that they know how to help you. They need to be able to help you at any given point in time. That's their expertise. You see, that's what the guy wanted from me when he told me his portfolio. He wanted fundamental expertise. That's all he wanted. He wanted the illusion. The reality is no fun. I want the fucking illusion, Mike. Give me your guru expertise right now, served up on a silver platter. That's what I want from you, Mike. Let me keep it at Barron's a little bit more. Sometimes Winton's systematic trading strategies can mean that its funds stay at the party even after it's over. In February, for example, Winton's funds lost 5% in a single month after riding a long bull run in stocks. Winton's positions in directional stock index futures had driven returns for more than a year, but trading turned volatile. Funds like Winton typically don't do well when there is a sharp reversal in markets. Now, the interesting thing about that article are some of the small things that you might not think about. Winton's funds lost 5% in a single month. Single month. Single month. Can you believe they lost 5% in a single month? That's so crazy. That's so wacky, Mike. My God, we all know how the markets work. The markets give you 1% every month, like clockwork. So how could a trend following trader lose 5%? Because we all know markets give 1% every month. No, they don't give 1% every month. It's a bunch of bullshit. But you can see this is how the mainstream reporters take a subject like trend following and they insert those fear words, not even bothering to really explain why losing 5% is no big deal, why it's been normal for decades, why it will always be normal with the strategy of trend following. But you see, back to the illusion, back to the Wizard of Oz, back to the fun behind the curtain. People don't want reality. They want the illusion. You know, as I run through all these examples today, from the questions that people asked me, to Ed Secoda's story on gold, to some analysis of David Harding's recent interview in Barron's. And oh, by the way, Harding also has made some comments about trend following not performing, or he will be trading less trend following. David Harding went from running $1 million to $30 billion. He's made himself over $1 billion as a trend following trader. That's one example. Pick up my trend following book. You'll find all the other examples that go along with David Harding, going back decades. So the question then becomes for you, when you hear a comment from anybody, me on this podcast, David Harding in Barron's, David Harding at another point in time, Ed Secoda talking about gold, whoever, the trick is not to get fixated on what the one person is saying. The trick is to look at the overall landscape. What does the overall landscape look like? People have motivations all the time, and those motivations don't have to be aligned with your motivations. The question for you, the question for anyone out there as you approach 2019 with the idea that you want to do something different, because maybe the fall of 2018 reminded you that you might need something different. And that's why I raise all these points today. That's why I bring these players and thoughts and ideas onto the podcast, just to get you thinking. Stay right now. Stay in the moment of right now. Take everything off your desk. Get tidy in your mind. Don't be sitting around waiting and thinking that you need to hear the latest and greatest from XYZ person. One person will not do it for you. What you need is a broad universe, a wide landscape of many voices that can help you to build confidence in a particular process. And not, for example, like day trading. Not, for example, trading 60-minute bars. That wide landscape doesn't exist. At least not for the average person with average means. But trend following is cool. Trend following gives everyone a chance to play. And more than anything for me, trend following has that philosophical foundation where you just cut through the bullshit. And it all goes right to one thing, the price. Trade the price of the market in front of you. You do that, you'll probably have a great year on average for the rest of your life. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.